How's it going, guys? Grimsie42 here, and I am back with week 8 of my continuing Garage Sale Chronicles. There's definitely some very, very interesting stories to go along with what I was able to find this week, so without further ado, let's get started. Alright guys, so this week started out so friggin' poopy that I was actually debating not going out anymore after that. I was really excited at first because it seemed like this would be a great week. First off, I saw a Thursday sale, and I could not believe that because you just don't see that. There are never Thursday sales. But I went to the sale, and it was crazy. It was like video games, everything you'd ever want, toys, this, that, and the other, and I'm like, man, this thing's going to be a mecca. A little bit out of my way, probably about a 25-30 minute drive from my work, but I went there and I look around and there's a couple games and they're all poopy games. There was nothing really worth my time, and again, it was one of those guys who's like, this is this much on Amazon, so didn't wind up picking any games up, but I walked around to see if there was anything I could find, and I did find one thing for $1.50. And I don't know much about toys, but I do know that this is definitely worth more than $1.50 regardless. It's a little warped, and it's got some damage to it, but it is still complete and brand new in the blister pack. It is from 1994, and it is the Power Morphing Jason Power Ranger. And as you can see, it's kind of, like I said, it's kind of warped, and this corner here is kind of bendy. Definitely not in mint condition, but it is still complete and sealed in there. So for $1.50, I figured, what the hell, I'm going to take a chance. It's probably worth 20-ish. So turns out that it was a pretty good gamble. Unfortunately, that was all I was able to find for Thursday. So Friday, there was only 2 sales on my radar, and I went to the first sale. I got there early. No one was there yet. Another gentleman pulled up, so I walked out of my car to go talk to him, and he's like, yeah, I guess he was like an antique guy, so I figured there'd be no competition there. He asked me what I was looking for, and I told him video games, and I could tell he was like, okay, good, you don't want the stuff I want, and I don't want the stuff you want. So the sale finally opened, and I looked everything over, and there was some games there. They had like PS2 games and stuff, and I asked the seller what they were trying to get for him, and she was like, oh, I think he wants, $5 a piece for them, and they were, or maybe $10 a piece, and they were like Devil May Cry 2 and like Final Fantasy like 12, nothing really worth my time. One thing I did spot there was a GameCube controller, and I asked them how much they wanted for that, and she was like, oh, $5. So for $5, I picked up a first-party black GameCube controller in really, really good shape. It looks like it just says 8E. Maybe it was $8, but she charged me $5, so these are about 20 bucks on eBay, so I figured I'd pick it up and either upgrade one of my GameCube controllers or flip it because it's in really good shape. The next sale that I went to, actually there's a bit of a story here. This kind of sucks for me. The next sale that I went to advertised Wii games, DS games, 3DS games, DSi games, DS systems, all kinds of stuff, and I'm like, oh my god, this is going to be awesome, but it's like completely on the other side of town. So basically I live in Buffalo, the Buffalo area. I'm in a suburb around Buffalo, and then there's like the further suburbs on both sides. The one that I got the game controller on, we'll say, is the furthest one to the east, or the west, and then I was going to the furthest one in the east. So it was like from my house, 25 minutes to the one, then like 30 minutes to the other. I get to the sale. She's still setting up. There's just like some bus driver parked their bus, and she's over there chatting with her, and I'm looking around. I'm not seeing any video games. And I asked the lady, I'm like, hey, did you have any video games? And she's like, oh, well, my kids decided not to sell them. And I was like thinking, shit, I just drove 30 minutes or whatever to get here. I was kind of pissed off. I was like, well, you advertised in your listing video games, you don't have any? She's like, well, I had some, but yesterday I was setting up, before I set up for today, and some guy drove by and asked, and I sold them all to him. I was like, oh, okay, well, you win some, you lose some, so I left. And on the way home, I would stop at every garage sale that I saw, and I finally found one that I stopped at, and the guy had, it was like those development complexes, like the new development homes, and there was a sign on the outside that said comic books, and I'm like, oh, well, this may be video game related. So I drove in and navigated through the maze that these things are. I swear they build them like that on purpose. and I go up, and he's got like a whole bunch of toys and a whole bunch of comics and stuff like that, and he obviously knows what it's worth. I think he's like a toy dealer or a toy collector. And I asked him if he had any video games, and he was like, you know, like, oh, I got like old Intellivision and stuff. And I was like, you know, sorry, sir, that's like before my time. I'm really not into that stuff. But I did notice right before I left, he had one thing on his one of his tables, and it was a really cool item and something I'd been looking for. And he had $45 on it, and I said, you know, hey, are you solid on this? And he says, no, I'm flexible. What are you thinking? And I was like, I'm more in the $20 to $25 range. And he was like, well, I want $35. And I was like, all right, well, I don't think we're going to be able to make a deal then. And I went and sat in my car, and I thought about it, and I was like, I wonder if he'll do 30. So I came back out, and I said, you know, how about we meet in the middle? I said 20 to 25. You said 35. Let's meet in the middle at 25 or at 30, and you know, then we all get what we want. And he thought about it, and he finally did it. So for $30, and I thought it was a pretty good deal. Correct me if I'm wrong. I got a inbox PSP 3001 model, and it came with Gran Turismo and then MLB 11, the show. And I'll go ahead and open this just so you guys can get an idea of how clean it is. Everything is in there. The paperwork is underneath. The memory card that came with it is currently in the PSP, and this PSP is like really, really clean. I don't know if I can catch the glare there, but really, really good shape. Very, very minor scratching, if anything, on the back, and nothing on the front. So I thought that for, you know, the $30 that this was a fair deal. I wanted one of these for myself. This is actually for the collection, and this is one of the models that you can actually hook up to the TV to play the games on. So I didn't own a PSP. I do now. Thought it was a pretty good deal. Didn't care for paying $30 for it. It was a bit more than I like to spend at garage sales, but so far all I've bought that week was a GameCube controller and a $1.50 Power Ranger toy, so my budget was still very, very much in good shape. Alright, coming up to the last sale. This was a Saturday sale, and I'd gotten here an hour early just because it was the only sale on my radar. I had nothing else planned. I came right from work, and I was very hopeful that I could get some stuff. The sale said 360 games in a system and PS3 games in a system, and I'm always looking for an upgrade for my 360. I've got an old Elite. It's very loud. It already had red ringed on me. I sent it out to Microsoft. Hopefully they fixed it, you know, so that it'll last a decent amount of time. But I've always been looking for the newer slim models because I'm told that they don't have all the problems that the previous models had. So, and I could always use a backup PS3 because I've got the old, like the fat model that's backwards compatible, and I'm always concerned that, you know, that's going to take a dump soon. So I was excited. I was sitting there, and I probably, when I pulled up, I didn't see any signs or anything, but I saw a garage open and a gentleman outside smoking. So I parked, and I went up to him, and I said, you know, hey sir, is there a garage sale here today? And he said, you know, yes, but the sellers aren't awake yet. I'm going to be selling stuff at the sale, but they're still sleeping. He's like, is there anything certain you're looking for? And I'm like, yeah, I'm looking for, you know, video games. He goes, okay, well, let me go in there and see if they're awake, and I'll let you know. And he goes in for 5 minutes. Comes back out. He's like, you know, they're waking their kids up and everything. And I says, oh, no, sir, don't worry about it. You know, I'm more than patient. I'll wait. And then another guy showed up that I guess was selling stuff at this sale. So the three of us were chit-chatting. And eventually, the first gentleman I talked to said, so you're here for video games, right? And I said, yes. And he pulled 4 out of his car. He said, well, I'm trying to sell these 4, so if you're interested in these, then, you know, I'll sell these to you. And I took a gamble, and I wound up picking them both up. The first one is Spawn Armageddon for the Xbox. And it's complete, good shape. And this next one I knew was relatively new. He wanted a lot for it, but we eventually came down to, I got both these games for $15. So I don't think that I did too bad, because I actually wanted this for my collection. It's the Ultimate Evil Edition of Diablo Reaper of Souls. So I don't know, I think this might be like a $20 game now or something, but still something that I want for my collection. I'm usually willing to pay a lot more for, and it's in like perfect shape. So definitely happy to grab that. So I had those two, and I threw those, I had like kind of like cargo shorts on, so I threw those in my pocket just in case any other potential garage sellers came up. You never want to let, you know, obviously I kind of have the video game look to me, but you never want to let the competition know what you're looking for. It just gives them extra advantage. So like I said, they were in my pocket. Finally, the sellers start coming out, start setting up. I'm talking to them. They pull out a stack of PS3 games. I go over the stack. There's really nothing in there I want. There was one game, Heavenly Sword, that I would have been interested in if I didn't just recently find it, but I already had it, so didn't really care. And I think they wanted like $8 a piece for the games, and like there was nothing worth $8 in my opinion. Then a local reseller that I know of, very, very aggressive reseller. I see him in neighborhood sales, like sprinting almost, rolls up, and he comes and he looks at the games, and he's fiddling through them, but he at least had the decency to ask me. He says, "Are you going to grab any of these?" And I says, "No, man, they're all you." And he grabbed 3, and he was trying to get them for $5 a piece. I'm not sure if he was ever able to work out a deal. But basically, the lady in the sale, she came up to me and she said, "You know, sir, you're waiting for more video games, right?" And I said, "Yeah, if you had any more." She says, "Okay, I'll get to it. Just give me some time." And I'm waiting. And another guy comes up who I believe was a collector. At the time, I didn't know whether he was a reseller or a collector. And he's standing there, and he thumbed through the PS3 games, didn't really see anything. And then the lady walked up to him and said, "You know, sir, is there anything you're looking for?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, I'm looking for video games." And she goes, "Oh, well, I was just going to go grab those, so hang on." So she goes in the house, she comes out with these 2 big boxes, and there was a Sega Genesis there was 2 Super Nintendos, a whole bunch of games, stuff like that. And the guy just starts looking through the stuff, and the 2 gentlemen that were also at the sale, the one guy I got the Xbox games off of, and the other guy I was chatting with kind of looked at me, and I looked at them, and I'm like, the hell's this dude doing? You know, like, I'm there. This guy just rolls up, and he thinks he gets dibs. So I kind of walked up to him, and I was like, you know, that's kind of messed up, man. And he looks at me like, what? And he keeps thumbing through, and I'm like, I was here first, and I had asked first. I should get dibs. And he was like, "Oh, well, I asked." I said, "Okay, but you weren't here first. You walked up and saw me here." And he kept thumbing through, and then the lady walked over and was like, "Yeah, he was here first, so let him get dibs." And the guy started, you know, whining and looking through the box still. He's like, but I was at this sale 3 weeks ago, and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, "Sir, I don't care. He was here first. He has to look at games. Let him get first dibs." And the guy cried about it again. And she was like, "Sir, I don't think you're hearing me. If you don't let him get first dibs, you get nothing." So he whined, and he kind of backed up a little bit. So I started looking through, and I obviously seen that that was a tense situation. I actually only wound up getting 4 games. There was plenty more, but I didn't want to, you know, clean them out, and I felt bad for the guy, even though he's kind of being a dick, because I could see like his hands were shaking, and you know he was very upset about the situation. So I grabbed what I grabbed, and he was being cool about it. Like, he was showing me games. He's like, "Is this one you're interested in?" I'm like, "Nah, man, that's all you." There was like a Blades of Steel there was a Game Genie, there was the Super Nintendos, like I said, there was a Beauty and the Beast game for the Genesis complete, a Sonic 2 complete. Anyways, so I got the little pile of stuff that I bought, and I went over to the lady, you know, and I apologized to her, even though I really didn't do anything. I said, "You know, ma'am, I'm sorry about that situation." And she's like, "Oh, I don't like confrontation." And she's like, "Look," and her hands are like shaking, and I'm like, "Are you okay, ma'am?" And I was like, "I'll throw this guy off the property if you want," or something, you know, like I felt bad for her. And she was like, no, you know, it wasn't on you, it wasn't on him, I just don't like confrontation, so I figured I'd just come back here and take a breather. And I was like, "I'm really sorry, ma'am." You know, and I talked to her for a few minutes, tried to calm her down a little, and I showed her my pile, and I said, "This is the stuff I'm going to get, you know, what do you think is fair?" And she suggested 20, and I wasn't even going to haggle with her. A, it's a pretty fair deal, and B, I just, with what she had to deal with there, I mean, it wasn't a big situation to me, but it mattered to her, so, you know, I felt bad, so I instantly said, you know, "Definitely, that's fine, here you go," and I said, you know, "Thank you, and best of luck today," and everything. So anyways, guys, let me show you what I grabbed, and this is all for 20 bucks. The first one is a copy of Mario World, and I tested it, it saves. Next is a copy of Faxanadu. Next one is a copy of Super Mario 3. A couple manuals and a pamphlet here. Just a poster that would come with any Super Nintendo game. Manual for Donkey Kong Country. And this one was pretty cool. A manual for Donkey Kong Country 3. And that's a late release game. So I believe I have this manual already, but that's pretty cool. So definitely figured I'd grab those. And then the last game I got, I actually just needed the manual for, but to get it complete, I wasn't going to complain. And it's Toe Jam and Earl Panic on Funkotron. And like I said, I had a copy of this, I just needed a manual, but not going to complain about a complete copy. Now I got that second one that I can trade off, and I've got this one for the collection. So I thought that was a pretty cool and pretty successful week. I really feel bad for that poor lady having to deal with that, and I tried to explain to her, You know, I said, us video game collectors, we are savages. It's a very competitive situation. I said, I always try to keep my wits about me. I always try to be polite and courteous, and I never try to lose my temper. Even when that dude was being a douche and rolled up, I just said, you know, hey man, that's kind of messed up. When what I really wanted to say to him would be a long string of explicit beeps, because literally this was like this little nerdy dude that I would have just balled up and threw a friggin' across the street. But you know, it never benefits you to be a douche about stuff. You just got to keep your cool, and in that case, it worked out well for me. He was also able to get stuff, and at the end of the day, you know, he was apologetic, and he said, you know, listen, man, it's just tough out here, and I said, believe me, I get it. So that's why, like I said, I wasn't trying to grab everything. There was, you know, those Super Nintendos I could have grabbed to flip, but I just, you know, I wanted to get something from the sale. I got a nice little stack here. I'm happy. Pretty cool and interesting end to the week. So anyways, guys, let me know if there was anything cool that you guys found this week, and thank you for watching, and until next time, take care.